So what is a phobia? Now, often people get phobias and fears very mixed up because basically phobias are like fears in the sense that you are fearful of something or a situation, a circumstance, an experience. But the difference is that you're not just fearful of it and you're not just nervous about it. You try and avoid it at all costs. It sends like absolute anxiety. It can control your life when you have certain phobias. And there's certain types of phobias. So you have simple phobias and complex phobias. And agoraphobia, which is like a fear of not being able to escape or not being able to get help. If you have a panic attack in a situation, you often hear about people with agoraphobia like being housebound and not leaving the house. Simple phobias are more like, when you have a phobia of a certain animal, like it could be spiders, arachnophobia, I think that is, or different objects. It might be something that's shiny, or I know people have certain textures they don't like. And often simple phobias stem from childhood and they can lessen over time into adulthood. Whereas complex phobias are more like social anxiety, and by social anxiety, again, people assume that just means being a bit shy, and it's not just about being an introvert, it's wanting to avoid social situations at all costs, even a trip to the cinema or a trip where you'll see other people, you fear of being judged, and just that you're embarrassed of yourself, or people will find you embarrassing, or you'll do something stupid. But these fears, whilst they, for the non-sufferer, feel irrational and seem ridiculous, to the sufferer, they are very acute and very, very real, to the point that phobias can really control your life, where you avoid it at all costs. So it can be being housebound, bedbound, or it can be not working in certain situations, or even not working. And sometimes the object of what you're fearful about or situation doesn't even have to be present. Just the thought of having that object present is enough to trigger someone. And there's lots of different therapies and techniques to be able to overcome phobias, or at least manage them better so they're not controlling your life, but they are very, very real. I know someone who had and has, to an extent, a phone phobia, in the sense of phone calls. Phone calls are like my nemesis, but to the point that people wouldn't understand this. So if I have a phone call, say it's Monday and I have a phone call on Friday, my whole week I will be anxious about that phone call on the Friday. And it's like, I don't know what it is, especially with phone calls. But yeah, I'll literally get so anxious about it. That said, I've managed to challenge my phone phobia a lot by different techniques, putting in AirPods, gradually moving around, gradually increasing my exposure to it. So it's like graded. You don't like the feel of cotton wool. Yeah, there's certain things, textures, that people can have actual phobias about. And to other people who don't have a phobia, it seems bizarre, it seems irrational. But when you're living with that, it causes so much anxiety. It's not just psychological, it's physical. You have that whole fight or flight thing where you can feel like heart palpitations, you might feel dizzy, get headaches. I'd love to know, comment below or tag me on social at the Sparkle Coach if you suffer from any phobias. But there's so many different types of phobias, and it stems from a number of reasons. Can be childhood traumatic experiences, it can just be genetic, or you might have been brought up with someone with a certain phobia and that's rubbed off on you, or it can be a trigger or a bad situation or bad event, or if you're going through a difficult period in your life, it might be a way of kind of venting your difficulties as well. So there's so many different ways, but there are lots of treatments out there for phobias. There's self-help ones, like graded exposure, if it's like a simple a phobia like with animals or a certain object or thing, where you can gradually introduce it into your life so that you can manage it. And then there's also like obviously self-help groups online and offline. There's lots of books as well. You can also get professional support. Always the first port of call is your GP, your doctors. But you can have hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioural therapy, which is like breaking down the kind of like the feelings and the emotions and the actions and trying to break that cycle. And then there's all sorts of like medication that you can go down if it's affecting you physically as well. But phobias are so real. I know as well, when I had one, it was for a shorter period of time, when my daughter had been ill and ended up in intensive care. And I'd been carrying her in the sling, and I didn't know she wasn't well until I just felt her go limp in the sling. And the fact that I didn't know she had any illness, and then she literally nearly died, I struggled then to go out the house with her. I struggled even just little things like going to the park across the road. I struggled with so many little things because it was that big fear, but that fear would stop me from doing things. Eventually for me over time, because that was to do with trauma and protection and nurturing, I did get help and support to be able to leave the house and go out, and eventually built up my confidence that it was rare what had happened and it was very unlikely and that she was okay. So there's lots of different things that can trigger anxiety within us, but phobias are very real. So you've got your simple ones, which are like specific phobias of animals, objects, something specific, and then your complex ones, which are your social anxieties, which are harder to kind of break up because it might not necessarily just be graded exposure, because there's all sorts of triggers that help you overcome that. And then obviously you've got the agoraphobia, which is quite well known as well. So I'd love to know if you've got any experience of phobias. I know how much it controls a person's life, but also those around you, because sometimes you're not wanting to go out or into certain situations. I will not ever work in an office, for example, like in an open plan office, because that's a massive, even saying that, it like almost brings tears to my eyes, the thought of being in an open plan space, and that really scares me, which is why I'm much better working from home, because a lot of office spaces, especially in the media, are now huge and open plan, and the thought of that overwhelms me and scares me. So it's really important, not that we can't ever recover from them and challenge ourselves, but just to understand it and get support when it's needed. So I'd love to know your experiences. Do chat to me on social at The Sparkle Coach and at Mama May Blog, of course. Sending you all so much peace, love and shimmies. Feel free to comment below, share this video if you think it's helpful. It means the world to have your support. Bye.